Welcome back to Flying Tiles. I'm really happy to have you here today. We're going to be looking at the year category 2026 from the American Mahjong playing card. This category is on the first panel, and it is also the very first category of the card. The tiles I'm playing with today are vintage from the 1970s. This is a prestige set from Cardinal Industries. I'll be showing the full set at the end of the video. The tiles here are the only tiles that are to be used in the 2026 card. A white dragon or soap does double duty. They are used as a 0, and they can also be used with any suit when they are being used as a 0. When you're using this tile as a soap or white dragon, then it only corresponds with the dots, as well as being considered an opposing dragon or opposite dragon if used with other suits. At the end of this video, I also have 2 Charleston modeling exercises. Moving into this category, the first line, first hand. The parentheses say any 2 suits exposed for 25 points. This category is not flexible. The hands, all of these hands, have to create 2026 in some manner. Let's take a look at the tile blocks in this first line and first hand. So we have a pung of 2s, those have to be 2s. We have a pung of soaps, those have to be soaps or jokers. We have a kong of 2s and a kong of 6s, and both those kongs have to be in the same suit. And in all of these tile blocks, you can use jokers. This is probably the most flexible hand in this category, yet you do have to use the 2s, the soaps, and the 6s where it indicates. Once you expose a 2 tile or a 6 tile in this hand, you're locked in. You can't rearrange these tiles within this hand. So once you make that exposure, it may be very difficult to pivot to another 2026 hand because those other hands require single block tiles. Each one, well, 2 of them have 2026, and then the last one has news as well as 2 pairs. We are moving down to the second line, and this just has 1 hand on the second line. So let's read the parentheses. Any 2 suits with matching dragons, the kongs can be 2 or 6. So that kong there can either be 2 or 6. This is an exposed hand worth 25 points. You have to have at least 1 soap dragon to make the 2026 to use as a 0 there. You can use the soap dragon as a dragon if you choose to have dots as a suit. So let's take a look here. The 2026 tile blocks are considered singles. So that 2, that 0, that 2, that 6, no jokers. All those tiles are considered single tiles, and that's why in the block I have my tiles laid on their side. That represents single tiles. You can have jokers in that pung of dragons or in the kong of the 2 or 6, and you can have jokers in that pung of dragons. So you have to have a pung of dragons that matches the suit you chose for 2026, and you have to have a pung of dragons to match that kong, whether your kong is 2 or 6. You also have to be sure that you use 2 suits. So whatever suit you use for your 2026, you have to use another suit for your kong. Players get in trouble here where they don't have the correct dragon matching the correct suit. So you have to just be sure you double check that you have your dragons matching your suits. Okay, we're moving on to line 3. The parentheses for line 3 says any 3 suits. It's an exposed hand worth 25 points. And remember, those flowers, they are not suited and they do not correspond with the suit. So where you see that green, that red, and that blue ink there, that's where you have to have 3 different suits. Any 3 suit combination. Also, in order to complete this hand, you have got to have a soap or a white dragon. So let's take a look at these tile blocks laid out. So we have our pung of flowers. We have our single blocks of 2026. There we go. We have no jokers there, a pung of 2s and a kong of 6s. The pung has to be 2s and that kong has to be 6s. You cannot have a pung of 6 and a kong of 2. It's got to be a pung of 2s and a kong of 6s. So if the pung of 2s and the kong of 6s could be interchanged, it would state that I've seen beginner players try to interchange those, and that's something you just can't do. There is plenty of room on this line that if you could interchange those, it would actually be written. We are moving to the last line, last hand, and this is actually an exposed hand worth 30 points. So let's read the parentheses. It says any two suits. And so this line, as I said previously, it has to create 2026 somehow, and it does that. So you can't have a pair of sixes at the very beginning there. So the numbers have to be as they are shown in the image here. Let's take a look and see what these look like in the tiles. We have pair, pair, pong, pong, single tiles. No jokers in those pairs and no jokers in the single blocks of news. You can have jokers in both of those pongs. Because this is an exposed hand, you can call a discard for those two pongs, or you can call a discard as your last tile for Mahjong in the pairs or the news tiles. Players get in trouble when they have gaps in this hand if they don't have the pairs somewhat secure or they don't have news. So it's not just one pair that you have to be aware of and make sure that you get. It's two pairs plus the news. That finishes the overview for the 2026 category. It's a very tight category and one that has extremely minimal flexibility. Next, you'll see a couple of Charleston modeling exercises, and then we'll take a closer look at the tiles I used. In front of the rack here, I have 6 stacks for my right over left and left over right. I've pulled 14 tiles, and I will be flipping those up on my rack. I also make sure that I organize my hand so that I can easily see what I have. So I usually put the jokers and the flowers on the far left-hand side, and for whatever reason, I really like to put my wins on the right-hand side, usually because I don't play a lot of wins hands, and those are most likely the first to go, unless I get a decent representation of the win tiles. So this was an interesting hand for me. It kind of boggled me. I had a pair of BAMs, and then a 3 BAM, and then a 9 BAM, and a pair of 4 cracks, a 4 dot and 3 dot. So that 4 dot should have gone behind the 3 dots. So I have pairs. I like to build around my pairs, and I could see like perhaps 1, 3, 5. So I was thinking odd categories, little odds, but those 4 pairs and that 4 dot threw me for a bit of a loop. So what are you thinking when you see this? Which way would you go? And what would be your first 3 tiles that you would pass? You can pause this if you want. So my first 3 tiles, which you'll see here in a second, were actually the last 3 on the rack, the 8 BAM, the West, and the 9 BAM. Okay, so I got a 1 BAM. That's nice. That helps. Oh, a 3 dot. Okay, what am I going to do with that? Okay. 1, 3, 4. I've got some 4s. Again, which way would you go? You know, maybe like tiles, maybe the like numbers. For whatever reason, I was having a hard time determining what category I wanted to move towards. I also have a tendency to not really look at the jokers, but once I brought the jokers into play, I saw a clear direction. In the consecutive run category, 7th hand down, the second line over, which is pair of flowers, 3 Kongs, consecutive run, and in 3 different suits. That fit perfectly with what I had in my hand here. So let's see how this comes in. Okay, looks like I'm going to point this out to you so you could see it. It says any 1 or 3 suits, any 3 consecutive numbers. This is very early to hone in on one particular hand, but I have the makings for it. Now I'm focusing in on passing defensively to try not to help the other players. Okay, I've got the red dragon, a 1 crack, and a 7 dot. None of that really helps me or changes anything. So it looks like I went with the 4 crack, 1 crack, 7 dot. That's a pretty good pass. I didn't want to pass the 4s together. Okay, I got another 4 dot. Interesting. All right, I don't want to pass suits together, and I don't want to pass the same numbers together. So let's see, what do I decide to pass? The East, the 4 BAM, and the red dragon. And let's see what other, 7 BAM, 2 crack, and a, oh, very good. and a 9 bam. All right, so I got one tile that makes up that middle Kong, and choosing the best tiles that don't go together and hopefully will not help another player. And we are on our over. Let's see. All right. So, oh, wow. Okay. Wow. I'm really doing well on this. And we have 3 bam, 5 crack, and 4 bam. So I'm going to do 3 as the optional. The optional tiles come from the tiles that I've already passed. I mix them up and I pick out 3 out of that. They're off to the side. So I got 7 bam, 4 crack, and I got an 8 bam. The tricky part is getting that flower for a pair because I cannot call a discard for it unless it is my Mahjong. All right, I have one more Charleston modeling exercise, and let's see what we have here. I have the tiles that I'm going to use for my right over left, left over right in front of the rack laid out. That's how I usually have them laid out versus like in stacks that I had last time. So I'm going to flip them up and start to organize them. Let's see what we have here. What starts to develop is consecutive run. I will have 1, 2, 3, 4 in cracks, and then it skips to, I've got a pair of 9 cracks, and then 2 dot, 6 dot, 1 bam, 6 bam, and then 1 wind or west. So my first 3 tiles are fairly easy to determine. I'm splitting up the 9 crack. The consecutive run I have is stronger. I have a pair of 2 cracks, and I want to build around that. And I've already started building around that, actually. Okay, I've got a 5 crack there, 9 dot, and 3 dot. All right, so let's see. I'm trying to think of the best defensive pass, what 3 tiles would not help another player. I don't want to pass 9s together, even if they're in opposite suits. I passed the 3 dot, the green dragon, and the 9 crack. So I got a 7 dot, a 6 bam, and a 4 dot. And that 6 bam kind of started me thinking about the 2026 category. I've got 2s and 6s. I have a flower. The problem is I don't have a white dragon. That is a big gamble as I start leaning into that category. And I need at least 1 white dragon. As this Charleston progresses, I also see that I have options for the 246 category, 2468 category, and then also I'm keeping my options open for consecutive run categories. Although I really would love to get a year category, but that does not really happen by the end of this Charleston. I have 1 more pass to go here. What are your thoughts on this? Would you have gone a different way than I've gone? Let me know down in the comments. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do a blind pass or not, but eventually I do decide to let go of the 6 dot. I'm going to keep the 6 bams, the pair of 6 bams, because I don't want to pass the 6 bam with the 8 bam. And I've got a 2 dot, a 7 dot, and a 1 crack. Okay, and I'm going to do an optional. So that's going to be my 7 dot and my 1 crack, and I will pick 2 out of the pile that I've already passed. Oh, I got my 6 dot back. That's great. Got my 8 bam. So I have options here. I have 2468 options. I have consecutive run options. That's not so bad. I'm moving the tiles around to see what I have in the 2026 category. I don't have that soap, which is really risky. So I do have a 2026. I have a 2026 in the dots. And so I'm thinking of that 3rd hand down. Pung of flowers, 2026, pung of 2s, and a Kong of 6s. That could possibly be a hand. So I have 2 cracks, which can move into my pung of 2s. And then I have a pair of 6 bams, which can move into my Kong of 6s. So I have everything except for my soap. And that's the hard part. That 3rd hand down there, that's the one I'm leaning into. And I hope I can get that soap. That would be great. And I also have consecutive run as a pivot category for me. So we'll see what happens when the game starts. My discards will be what does not support that 2026 hand as well as what does not support the consecutive run hand. I'm going to have to make a decision at some point. Okay, so let's look at the tiles I'm using. These are made by Cardinal Industries. They're called the Prestige Set, and Cardinal made a lot of these in the 1970s. The colors are really bold and vibrant. Here's a look at the dragons and the jokers, the winds, and the flowers. Here we have an up-close look of the dragons. I love the shiny glitzy gold. And if you look at the dragon's eyes here, you can see there's some gold there in the red and the green dragon. And then that shiny glitzy gold in the soap dragon is great. Here we can see it in the jokers. It gives the tile that little extra sparkle. The image there in the middle of the joker is actually a traditional Chinese dragon pursuing a flaming pearl, which symbolizes power, wisdom, and auspicious mastery. Here we're showing the horns of the dragon. And next we're going to look at the eye of the dragon. And here we have the pearl inside the dragon's mouth. And there's the fire coming outside of the dragon's mouth. So I hope you can see that image a little better. These are the season tiles, and the color is just so incredible. I love the blue. You can also see the blue in the one bam, which the one bam is a crane. If you find value in this video, and maybe the other videos, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye and take care.